Ask a psychologist why people confess deep secrets to strangers on planes and trains more easily than to close friends, and you'll get two genuinely different, both partially correct, explanations. The first camp argues it's about consequence-free disclosure. A stranger you'll likely never see again carries none of the social risk. A close friend does no chance the information changes how they treat you tomorrow. No risk of it circulating through your shared social circle. No lasting relationship to protect if the disclosure goes badly. This camp calls it the stranger on a train effect, and the core claim is that the absence of future consequences is what unlocks the honesty. The second camp argues something more specific. It's not really about consequence at all, it's about the absence of an existing narrative. Close friends and family already hold a fixed, built-up mental picture of who you are, accumulated over years. Disclosing something that contradicts that picture struggle a doubt. A secret feels like it threatens to unravel or complicate an established identity they already believe in. The stranger holds no such picture. There's nothing established to protect or contradict, which removes an entirely different kind of pressure than simple consequence avoidance. Case 1, favoring the first camp. Someone reveals a past mistake to a stranger on a long flight, specifically citing afterward that it felt safe because I'll never see them again, a direct, explicit statement about consequence avoidance driving the disclosure. Case 2, favoring the second camp. Someone reveals a private doubt about their career to a stranger at a conference, but later admits the same information felt impossible to say to their spouse, despite their spouse being trustworthy and unlikely to react badly, meaning the barrier wasn't actually about risk of consequence at all, since the spouse posed less practical risk than the stranger. The barrier was about not wanting to complicate an established, years-long narrative their spouse already held about who they were. The tiebreaker fact that resolves this for most real situations. Both mechanisms are usually operating simultaneously, but their relative weight depends on the specific disclosure. Confessions involving genuine risk something illegal, reputationally damaging, or relationship ending if it spread lean more heavily on the consequence avoidance mechanism. Confessions involving identity, doubt, or vulnerability that isn't inherently risky if it spread, but simply feels hard to say to people who already have a fixed picture of you, lean more heavily on the narrative protection mechanism. What both explanations agree on, and what actually matters practically, the safety strangers provide isn't really about the stranger being a better listener, or more trustworthy in some abstract sense. It's structural. They carry no history with you and no future to protect, which removes two separate kinds of pressure that even your closest relationships inevitably carry. Knowing this can be freeing in a specific way. The friend or partner you've been avoiding a hard truth with likely isn't a worse audience than a stranger. They're just operating under a structural disadvantage. A stranger doesn't have one you can actually name and work around deliberately. By explicitly telling them you're sharing something that doesn't need to fit their existing picture of you, rather than assuming they'll react as though it does. There's a practical application worth naming for anyone who recognizes this pattern in their own relationships. The specific act of naming the structural barrier out loud, before disclosing something difficult, tends to genuinely help. Saying something like, "I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear it," without deciding it changes how you see me, directly addresses the narrative protection mechanism, rather than leaving it to operate silently in the background. It doesn't remove all discomfort from the disclosure, but it gives the listener explicit permission to receive the information differently than their existing mental picture of you would otherwise default to, which is often exactly the barrier that made a stranger feel easier to talk to in the first place.